Hey, what's up everybody? Mark Jancic here. I'm super excited about this video because I'm going to talk about how multifamily real estate in particular can make you millions of dollars. In the previous video, I mentioned, hey, not one is better than the other. Single family residential versus commercial family multifamily. I don't believe one is better than the other. They're both able to make you a ton of money. Nice. Depending on what you want to do. They're both capable of getting you cash flow every single month. They're both able to appraise at higher values down the road, and basically you can cash out on a big payday.
It's payday, boys.
But multifamily has a very particular way of being valued, and I alluded to this in the previous video, and it's all completely based off of how you operate the property. And so this video, I'm going to break down a little bit further how that works and how it's quite honestly pretty magical in my opinion. And it's just downright exciting if multifamily is what you choose is right for you. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to use my handy dandy pencil here to kind of draw some of these concepts out. So multifamily real estate is all about how you operate the property. And so how that works is, let's say you have a bunch of revenue coming in. So you have a bunch of dollar bills coming in. Now what you're going to look at is your expenses. So you're going to be subtracting these dollar bills from the previous one, right? And then what you're left with is your net operating income, NOI. The last thing you're going to have to do is subtract also the loan, and then that equals your cash flow. But for the purposes of this whole example I'm doing, I don't really care about that, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I don't really care about the loan or the cash flow right now. What I care about is how this property is valued, and that's based off of NOI. The way this works is it's called the IRV Triangle, or at least that's what I like to call it. So you look at income divided by rate equals value. Now I promise this isn't too nerdy. See, I'm not getting into all the full-blown analysis. I'm not going crazy with all the numbers. I'm just giving you the downright basics of how a multifamily property is valued. So the income, right, so NOI goes there, is divided by a rate, which is known as a capitalization rate. And then that determines the value, which is the V right there. The rate, let's say, and I'm gonna pick a random rate. Let's say the cap rate is 7%. R is 7%. So what is 7% really? It's 7 divided by 100, right? So it's really that. So you would put that right there, and then that would spit out the value. That's how we would get the value. If you look at that, you realize that the rate is really, if you kind of re-engineer that equation there, the rate is really kind of a multiple. When you're dividing by something that's not a whole number, it actually multiplies the value, right? And so let's make the numbers easy. Let's say the cap rate is 10%, so that's 0.1. What that would do is, how many 0.1s are in a whole one? There's 10, so the multiple is 10. If you're making an NOI of $100,000, so that goes here, and your capitalization rate is 0.1 or 10%, what happens is your value is gonna basically be $1 million, because it's the same as multiplying 100,000 by 10. And so the value is gonna be $1 million, which is amazing. So as a real estate investor who's into multifamily, there's an interesting thing that's happening right now, is you realize there's two different levers you can pull to make that value go up. And if you pull both of them at the same time, that's when things really get crazy. And let's take a look at those levers. So again, we have I, which is income, or net operating income, divided by R, which is the rate, or the capitalization rate specifically, and then that equals the value. I'm not saying that's the purchase price. Hopefully you can evaluate it and get it at a lower price than what the value is, or you see the future of a multifamily's value based off of things you can do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Value doesn't mean purchase price. Value just means what it can or should be valued compared to everything else that's going on in the market. So income, as we talked about earlier, income is really revenue, rev minus expenses, okay? The cool thing there is that is one of the levers, is you can adjust either one of those things. You can either increase revenue, so if you raise the rents, That'll make your NOI greater. Or you can decrease expenses. I'm not kidding right now. I think we raised the value, I think it was by $60,000. We raised the value of one of our apartment complexes by $60,000 simply by changing the garbage contract. Basically, we were able to pay half of the trash expense we had previously. What that did is that increased our net operating income. We divided by the same capitalization rate. It boosted the value like crazy. So that's how this becomes super interesting, because you can now optimize your net operating income in two different ways. You can either focus on increasing the revenue, or you can focus on decreasing the expenses, or both at the same time. And what it does is it'll just keep making that NOI annually bigger and bigger and bigger. What sometimes will happen, and this isn't really up to you completely, is that the capitalization rate will go down. And if you remember what I explained earlier, the lower that number is, let's say it's instead of a 10% capitalization rate, which just to show you, that's really this, 0.1. What if it changed over to a 5% capitalization rate for that same property? What if it became this?
I see where you're going with this.
The multiple on your income is 20 instead of 10. I'm not gonna go through the math here, but basically, if you divide something by 5%, it's the same as multiplying it by 20. If your net operating income doesn't change at all, let's say it's 100,000 just for the sake of this example. Let's say that's your income. If the cap rate changes, and that's all that happens, your revenue expenses are the exact same, all of a sudden your property went from being $1 million to now $2 million. Did that just blow your mind? It going from 10% to 5% is pretty crazy. It's probably not gonna happen overnight. It might not happen at all. But that's just to show you that there's two different levers here that are pulled. And really one of them has two levers of its own, right? Income has revenue and expenses, but there's two things that govern the value. And so I'll give you a real life example. My parents and I purchased a property for $2.6 million 4 years ago. The capitalization rate at that time was something like 8.5. The capitalization rate now is 6 because of what happened to the market. So it's 6%, so it went down. The net operating income we've optimized to be even like several $1,000s a month better. And so now when divided by that lower capitalization rate, the value of our apartment complex went from being $2.6 million to $4 million. Within 4 years, the property, not only has it been cash flowing, it is also now appreciated $1.4 million more than what we paid for it. That is awesome. If this is what excites you, if taking control of a business and making it better is what excites you, then multifamily might be the way to go for you specifically. I gotta say, we have a fantastic multifamily academy, so check that out. We've had over 100 students go through and they're already crushing it, taking down hundreds of units, soon to be thousands. I can't recommend it enough if this excites you. Subscribe to Active Duty Passive Income, hit the little bell button as well so you get notified when I make a next video. Check us out on Instagram at Active Duty Passive Income. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, bye.